This is one here. So you've got your filled in space there, might be slightly curved, and then you've got your triangles going into it. So I always move my board around, so you know the whole idea of a swan landing. You're always moving forward before you touch. If you drop like a helicopter, you're not going to get a good point, so that's good and that's bad. And all the time moving your thing around, so your hand, it keeps going in that natural direction, and it's the icon that moves around. So it'd be rather difficult to do nice ones like that. You can do just using your finger, but nicer to use. If it's a large line, your whole arm. If it's a medium length, your wrist. If it's tiny, just your finger. But try to use your wrist for most lines. So we'll do these ones here. Don't forget that each time you touch your brush down, I'll exaggerate, you tend to flatten the end of it, like it becomes like a spade. So if you twist it 90 degrees, see, it's nice and pointy when you push it, it flattens like that. If I do another brush stroke, you're not going to get a sharp point, but if you turn the brush like that, you get a sharp point. That'll flatten, turn it again. So each time just twist it 90 degrees, and you'll get a nice sharp point each time. Now notice how I'm going right into that. A lot of people think, oh, I'm getting near, I'd better slow down or whatever, and they sort of like do it at a big scale. That's your reservoir there. You don't want to do this. See, that's got to be cut off entirely by that. See, these are cut off entirely. They go right in without it. So you want to go right over and overlap like that. Okay. This has got quite sparse, it's a style of this particular icon, quite sparse aceast. I'll show you one which has got a more dense aceast. That's this one here. That's a bit more dense. Yeah, that's more dense, yeah. So it's roughly 50-50, isn't it? You wouldn't have any more than 50% gold. In the thickest part and 50% background. This one I showed you before is probably the finest you would want to get in terms of relationship of aceast to background. So an important point to make is that if you're painting something that is actually very large and you're painting at something a fifth of the size, don't try to imitate the number of aceast per metre that they do. Which one was I looking at? So, okay. So this to say you're painting a really big one and you manage to get 20 of these lines and your icon's this big. If you try to do that, they'll all join together and get a massive gold. So it's a rule of thumb, work to 50 to 30% being gold and 50 to 70% being the background. Otherwise it'll just register as a big lump. So you've got that, that's one bit of vocabulary. Another one is, say if it's a forearm, you would get just a straight bit like that, like here. But often it's not just sort of boringly straight in like that. It's a bit boring, that. So you can see here instead they've varied it a bit. And you might go this way a bit. A bit more interesting. So study closely, but remember you're not just making a web of unrelated lines, you're actually modelling. So I'll get a slightly better example, clear example. As with highlighting with flesh, so with aceast. So here, for example, the knee is forward, so that's got a large bit of aceast. That part of the forearm is sticking forward, so that's got more aceast than there, which is going away.
So it's a bit like a highlight?
So it's exactly like highlighting. Exactly. It's just you're modelling with line.
Okay, so it's modelling highlights.
Yeah.
Ish.
That's right. So here, oops, here's chest is more forward than the side, so there's more highlight in the middle than on the outside. Here, that's sticking forward and the cloth comes back, so there's more there. This muscle comes forward a bit, so there's more there. The forearm, that's more forward than that, so there's more around there. Right? So observe closely first, so you know the logic and what you're doing. Okay.
Are there rules for which shapes go where?
Not really, no. I mean, here, this is a triangular fold, isn't it? So it's a triangular thing. That's more like a sort of a parallel fold, so it's more square. That there is like that because that's a curve, isn't it? It's sort of rounded area, so it's round.
Can you make up your own, or do you have to copy it?
In the beginning, I would copy to understand the principles.
You understand it?
Yeah,
okay.
otherwise you'll get completely lost.
Okay.
But,
so the rules are basically, are there sort of rules?
well, yeah, the main rule is that the larger areas of gold are the areas either that touch, where garments touch the flesh and are pressed forward more, and areas that are closer would have more gold than areas further apart. That's a basic rule.
So large areas of gold are because the person's body inside is touching the material, so the light's coming
it's
through.
sort of pushing forward, pushing it forward. Yeah. One exercise might be, I mean, I would suggest just copying one assess, but then the next exercise might be getting a clearly modelled painting, like this here, and transfer that into assessed. So think, oh, that's lighter than that, so that I might have a triangle of gold there, and then just lines coming into that. For example, here I might have a triangle of gold there, and so on.
So it's like an ultimate highlight.
Yeah.
The scary part is when you put the glue.
Yeah, it's so fine, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So what I suggest is you practice just with the dark colour and white, just doing assessed with a brush, because if your brushwork isn't good, forget assessed. As you'll see, you can adjust assessed a bit after you put the gold on.
I was suggesting do it with Guinness because you can wash it off.
Yeah. So there are a number of ways of applying gold. One is just oil size, which I had done, but it's quite difficult, it's quite sort of gunky. Most of the old ones are done with oil size. The research done shows that the oil size, so I've got quite good points, so there's a way of doing it.
You mean the oil size you use for the oil gilling?
Yeah.
The same?
Well, we don't know if they added other things to it when they're doing assessed, but it was certainly an oil base. Yeah. I did a whole series of gold or copper for a door, it had to be all size, and I noticed there, funny enough, you had to put quite a lot on to your brush to get a sharp point. If it was too dry, you didn't get a sharp point, so you had to sort of, it's just a way of applying it, so you'd end up, and you get quite a nice blob at the end, which made it a bit three-dimensional. One of the difficulties with oil size is that if you do that, this will dry very quickly, and that will dry more slowly. So I found, when I first tried doing it, that I'd wait till that was just the right consistency, put the gold down and it wouldn't stick to the end, so you get all these blunt ends. So that's why I found having a slightly fuller brush, putting it on, not only helped to get a sharp point, but it meant that it was slightly raised, so it would sort of hold its stickiness a bit longer. The other, which is what Olga mentioned, is where you boil, in Russia it's kvass, in this country Guinness is the closest, so you boil it, and it doesn't boil for a long time, until it becomes like Vegemite. And then you have that as a stock, and then you add a bit of water to that and paint all these. Before you do that, you dust it with your icon with French chalk. And then in Russia they get rye bread, knead it, and then they pick up the gold with that, then breathe first, breathe, then press hard. That's why you need the French chalk down, because when you're pressing it's going to stick to the gold.
But you don't press hard.
You don't press very hard.
Because otherwise the one's going to be
very thick. Split and...
What's French chalk?
It's...
Just any chalk.
But basically it's,
Fine chalk, maybe.
Fine chalk, but basically a whiting from making gesso. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's actually quite tricky to do, but it has the advantage that because it's water-based, unlike the oil side, it comes off the brush nicely. And you can, it's water, and it's not durable in itself, so then you've got to go over it with shellac, you see. So it's a bit tricky, really. I've only done it once myself, but that's just a traditional way.
And you can wash them off.
Now the cheats way is to use acrylic gold size. Now acrylic gold size is rubbish for any gilding apart from the deceased. But it has various advantages. It's being water-based, it flows nicely off the brush, which is really important.
What's it called again, sorry?
Just acrylic gold size. This is a Robertson one, yeah.
Can you try mine also? Will you see if there's anything wrong with it?
So the two main advantages of this is that it does come off the brush nicely, and a big advantage is it stays tacky almost indefinitely, so that it you haven't got that problem of the end drying before the fat part.
But can you wash it off?
No, it's sort of permanent. Now, a wonderful trick of the trade. It does dry your brush pretty quickly, and your brush both gets ruined quickly if you don't do what I'm going to show you, and secondly it'll be, after about 4 minutes, it won't flow off nicely because it's beginning to set around here. But if you get dishwashing liquid, this is dishwashing liquid, and rub it into your hair like that and leave it on, just take the excess off and leave it on, that creates a film of this sort of slimy stuff around it, so that you can always keep this in perfect conditions. After about 5 minutes of using the gold size, you can wash it, then reapply that and carry on. Notice how decanted there. You want a lot of control as to how deep you put your brush in. If you just put it into that, you'll end up having blobs all over the place. So you only want to dip it in about halfway and take the excess off. It'd be quite nice if one could tint this so you can see where you're going, but I just tend to sort of have it in such a way that the light makes a reflection. I'll paint an idea on. See if you can see the reflection.
Presumably you could add some pigment, could you?
I'll try. I don't know if it'll fit. I've never done it before, but this is where synthetic pigments can be quite good. They're really, really fine. So you don't want obviously blobs in your nice thing. So I'll add a touch of vermilion. That's probably the finest I've got. See if it helps you to see it. Watch that. Right, so get the best pointed brush you've got. I'll do it with a really large one so you can see where we're going. Just do that. Oops, sorry, I haven't put my protective coat on. And take the excess off. An angle. So you know the principles of good lines. Point about 45 degrees to the paper, not like that, 45 degrees, pointing in the direction you're moving, and moving in the air before you touch the ground. You're a swan coming into land. I'll get the gold reading out. Now you can only use loose gold leaf for this. You can't use, well you can, but it doesn't produce very good results. Use transfer gold, yeah. The reason being the transfer, you've got to push hard to transfer it and you can squash the lines out. So loose gold leaf, you just lay it on, give it a brush with a soft brush, and then it's fine. So probably in about 10 minutes that'll be ready to put the gold down.
So you need to wait 10 minutes, yeah?
10, but you could wait for 2 hours, you come back the next day.
Yeah?
Really?
That's super.
Yeah.
Try everyone else.